Hi all, my name is Erica, aka ECR Horses 1901, and I was inspired to do a tier ranking of the various Breyer traditional model horses after watching a similar video, because in some cases I have a lot of thoughts. This will be far too long for a single video, however, so instead I hope to cover about 20 molds each time. I'm sure there will be some controversial takes throughout, so definitely feel free to leave me comments. Also, I won't be showing the actual tier chart until the end of each video, and we'll build it up week by week. Before I begin, all pictures and pretty much all of my additional information is from the Identifier Breyer website, which you currently see on the screen. All that said, let's begin. First up is the Action Stock Horse Foal, introduced in 1984, sculpted by Chris Hess. Here we are seeing the Bay Pinto version from 1984, and from the left side, it's kinda cute, it's not awful. From the right side, he becomes a bit wonky in the face. Because this mold is overall a bit rough around the edges, I was surprised that it was included as a BreyerFest special run in 2023 as part of a pair called Axel and Surrey, because even here the mold is what it is, but the paint job on this one didn't really wow me either. So we're gonna start off our first mold on C tier. Next up is Adios, introduced in 1969, sculpted by Chris Hess. Oh, Adios. I had no idea this was supposed to be a standardbred. I think I was honestly always under the impression that this was a quarter horse. I mean, just look at him. This is a chonky boy. Since this was also a portrait model, we can look at pictures of the actual horse. And I think they did him a bit dirty here, but this is a somewhat early model, so what can you really do? In any case, I think it makes perfect sense that this mold has been used for quarter horses and other thicker breeds in later years. There have been some really interesting colors on this mold, such as the glossy Like a Diamond, which was the BreyerFest live show prize in 2004, and the glossy Copenhagen Pinto you can barely see here, but which was a one-of-one live auction model at BreyerFest 1998, which sold for over $2,000, and was, having gone through the list, one of the pricier auction models that year. In any case, C tier. Third up, Akelteke, introduced in 2020, sculpted by Heather Palaio. I really like this model. It's an interesting outline, and it also comes in some amazing colors. I love the Appaloosa Fields of Heather version, and the Chrome BreyerFest special run from 2021 is a fantastic choice. I also made sure that Namiya here was on my birthday list, and thankfully I got him because I love the Greek motif going on here. And yeah, what can I say? I am really excited to see future iterations of this mold. S tier. Albaroso, introduced in 2008, sculpted by Brigitte Eberl. This is another stunning model, this time of an Andalusian stallion. As the Identifier Breyer page states, however, Albaroso was introduced in 2008 as a celebration model at that year's BreyerFest, and is a portrait model of a famous Andalusian stallion of that name who also appeared at BreyerFest that year. However, this is the part you may not know. I know I certainly didn't realize it. The mold was intentionally broken by Breyer once the celebration model was made, and there will be no more models made on the Albaroso mold, save for very small special runs and one-of-a-kinds. And that has indeed been the case. The last model using this mold was in 2019, a one-of-one for the BreyerFest live auction, and I quote from the website, glossy, sooty, dappled buckskin Sabino Pinto, that's a mouthful, that sold for only $22,000, so your choice, a car or this model horse, nice though he may be. In any case, he's a spectacular model, and I'm gonna have to say S tier. Apologies if I mispronounce this name, but next up is the Emazig Stallion, aka Animar, introduced in 2022 and sculpted by Sarah Minkowitz. And he is aka the slightly more accessible, but only slightly, Andalusian Stallion mold. He was originally a Premier Collection model, and although the dappled gray is, on one hand, gorgeous, the dapples, in my opinion, are a bit much and are not super realistic looking. It's at least not as much as I would hope for one of the models from the Premier Collection. I think he fares better as Spios, who is either this rich chestnut, or my favorite, this really interesting, glossy, red-black color shift. So when it comes to this boy, it's gonna be A tier. Amber, introduced in 1997, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. I don't pay attention to full models that much, and when I first saw her on the Identifier Breyer's site, my first impression was that she was a bit dopey looking, especially in the face. But the more I spent time looking through the different iterations, the more this mold has grown on me. She's very versatile, having been a range of colors and even breeds, everything from an Appaloosa like you see here, to presumably a Morgan or a National Show Horse based on the mares that she has been paired with. So I guess from a showing standpoint, she could be nice because you could make the case that she is any number of different models. I don't know, I'm still very new to showing, so please take my advice on that with a huge grain of salt. In any case, Amber is going into B tier. Then, American Saddlebred Stallion, aka American Saddlebred, introduced in the year 2000, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. Honestly, I thought this was more of a recent mold. Having seen him in person many times now, he's quite striking no matter what color he is. And a lot of the special colors are truly lovely. Like we have the Starry Coated Odyssey, and the Golden 30th Anniversary Special Edition for Just About Horses subscribers from the year 2005. I am definitely considering adding one or more of him to my show string. A tier. Andalusian Foal, introduced in 2015, sculpted by Brigitte Eberl. My feelings about this mold are super color dependent. I sometimes feel like the Roman nose is a bit too much on this little guy. I mean, I know that's a breed characteristic, but, you know, come on. Whereas other times, I feel like it doesn't look as bad. Of course, I say this, and I have taken a moment to go back and look through the different pictures that are available on Identifier Breyer, and suddenly I can't find the ones that originally made me say that he does not always look as bad. Yeah, I'm just kind of blah about this model. So unfortunately, he's going to be my first D tier. Then we have the Andalusian Mare, also introduced in 2015, also sculpted by Brigitte Eberl. The Andalusian Mare fares better. The dappling on this 2016 Mamacita mold is really nice. I also love the details on this one-of-one, again I quote, red dun snowcat blanket Appaloosa, which was part of the Mare and Fold set. Did I just say fold? I meant full. That sold for just over $8,000 at BreyerFest 2020. They're more affordable than Alborozo anyway. The Andalusian Mare is going to be A tier. And that of course brings us to the Andalusian Stallion, aka Andalusian, introduced in 2004, however, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. He is okay. I don't know, I would say that maybe I'm just not a big fan of Andalusians, but that's funny because one of my favorite horses in real life that I have ever had the privilege of riding and actually half-leasing was partially an Andalusian, so I think I actually have a soft spot for these horses. But it's just maybe not coming through in these particular molds. I think on him, I just really am not a fan of the super closed throat latch. That's just not a great look as far as I'm concerned. There are a few specific models that are okay to very good, such as Tortuga del Mar, a one-of-one for the Breyer Fest live auction in 2005, which sold for $1,800, and also the glossy Dark Palomino Jubilee, who was a Breyer Fest 2014 special run. It's a C tier for me, but it's honestly more like C-. Appaloosa Performance Horse, introduced in 1974, sculpted by Chris Hess. I'm always going to be a little biased in favor of Appaloosas. My horse that I owned when I was younger was an Appaloosa, and a lot of my favorite lesson horses over the years were Appies as well. That said, this mold definitely has its good and its not so good points. I do love the inclusion of the short Appy tail, and I also don't mind the heftier, more old school quarter horse type body. I also like the details on some of the later editions of this mold. Like here we have slightly better striped hooves than in some of the earlier models, but I feel like the spots themselves could be improved. Like I actually have this Indian pony model, and the borders are just so clean, to the point where I actually think this was handled a little bit better on some of the older models, like, and granted this is not the best picture, and I'm hoping it's not just that this is a little bit blurry, but this is Chief of 4 Mile from 1999, and it does appear that there's perhaps slightly better haloing around his spots there. But when it comes to this Appy, we're gonna go B tier. Arabian Mare, aka Just a Dream, or Oasis, or Make-A-Wish. Introduced in 2009, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. This is a hard one to rate, because there are, as you can see just in this top row, many variations of this mold. My ideal would probably be the Just a Dream headset with the longer tail that we see here, but that actually doesn't exist. So I would need to get those models and then customize, which is not something that's gonna happen anytime soon. Otherwise, I mean, I feel like she's a good, no-nonsense Arabian model, but it's definitely not my favorite when it comes to this breed. So Arabian Mare, you are going C tier. Aristocrat Champion Hackney, aka Hackney. Introduced in 1995, sculpted by Kitty Cantrell. Look, I don't know a lot about Hackneys, and I am not the biggest fan of this mold. Possibly because of that. Is it a good example of a Hackney? I don't know. Even the Appaloosa pattern that we see on this guy from 2006, Appy Days, doesn't really do it for me. So sadly, this is going to be our first F tier. Ashley, introduced in 1997, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. This full model is pretty cute, and again, I feel like it is fairly generic, so it could be versatile for showing. She has appeared in a wide range of colors, including a couple of unicorn versions, not like unicorns a color, but ignore that, and even a couple deco colors like this blue one. Ashley is going to be a solid C tier. Ashquar, aka Striking Arabian, introduced in 2013, sculpted by Brigitte Ebrel. Flame suit on, I guess. But this is another model, or I guess it's the first one I've actually mentioned, where I'm like, what is this horse doing? Now, don't get me wrong, there are some lovely coat patterns here, and the one-of-one Leopard Appaloosa version, which sold for $8,500 at Breyerfest 2023, sold for that amount of money for good reason. I don't think this picture actually does him justice. But nevertheless, this mold, whatever you want to say, confuses me every time I see it. D tier for sure. Australian Stock Horse, aka Dundee, introduced in 2018, sculpted by Mooning Piglet Studio. This mold has so much character. I love the ease of the canter, I love how natural it all looks, and again, I feel a bit like a broken record, but there are so many great models and colors. I actually have Romeo, I got him not too long ago, who is a Silver Bay flagship model. Let me just say, I would not be upset about getting a few more of this guy. He's going in S tier. Balking Mule, introduced in 1968, sculpted by Chris Hess. I never had a balking mule, but I remember seeing him around. He's probably not the best. I'm totally ignorant about mules, conformation and such like. So I can't say he's probably not the best conformation-wise or whatnot. And I don't think I'd go out of my way to acquire one of these, but if I found one in an antique store or something like that, I'm sure I would snatch him up as long as he wasn't totally wrecked. So, Balking Mule, you're going in C tier. Belgian, introduced in 1964, sculpted by Chris Hess. This is a chonky boy. Almost too chonky, even for a draft horse. Interestingly, even though he's not the best built draft horse model, this mold keeps coming back. As recently as 2023, he appears as a Tractor Supply model with very traditional light chestnut coloring called Gibson. I don't think I would use this model to show, but I'm not going to say that this particular one or any of the other models on this mold would be bad to have around if you find it appealing. C tier. Big Ben, introduced in 1997, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. I really like this mold, although, yes, I wish his head was not behind the vertical, but again, what am I supposed to do about it? Also, probably because I remember really liking Big Ben as a horse when I was a kid. There's been a lot of great one-of-one Breyerfest models, including this gold Apropos in 2003, and also, no bones about it, a skeleton deco pattern in 2004. Sorry this picture is so blurry. I tried to find a better picture online of this model, but I absolutely could not. And there's just been a lot of nice regular run patterns as well. I also have to say that I like Cryptic, the 2004 Halloween model, who is meant to look like Granite. I think that's super cool. And, of course, special shout out to the Breyerfest special run from 2022, Brahms, who I do have. Of course I do. Big Ben is A tier. Black Beauty, introduced in 1979, sculpted by Chris Hess. A pretty classic mold that was popular back when I was collecting as a kid, though I never had one of these. I think I did ask for Dreamweaver, who was the 1991 limited edition that year, but I never got him, so oh well. The body of this model is not that bad, I mean, given its era, but the face always looks very outdated. Let's just take a moment to appreciate some of the faces of these Black Beauty models. There is Black Beauty herself, Sir Wrangler from 1998, Fade to Grey from 1989, again we have Dreamweaver from 1991, and we're not going to do all of these, but this is A.A. Omner from 2001-2002. Sorry Black Beauty, but you're gonna go C tier. not too bad, all things considered. And that's the end of our first video. We ended up with 3 S-tier models, 4 A-tier, 2 B-tier, 8 C-tier. I only included one of the Arabian mares because there's 2 styles that are actually included in this tier maker, but I just figured I'd put one to represent both of them. Anyway, 2 D-tier, and only 1 F-tier so far. Again, I welcome your comments, and if you like this video, I'm sure you watch YouTube, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe to see the rest of this series. Bye for now.